Lorie Karnath, Managing Editor of Molecular Frontiers Journal. I'm here today with Professor Richard Zare, who's the Marguerite Blake Wilbur Professor of the Natural Science Departments of Chemistry and Physics, School of Humanities and Sciences at Stanford University. Welcome, Professor Zare.
Thank you.
We're here today because recently Molecular Frontiers Journal published an article authored by you titled "The Effect of Relative Humidity in the Air on the Transmission of Respiratory Viruses." It highlights the role that relative humidity may play in mitigating virus transmission, of course, particularly timely, I would say. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about the background on this and why you feel that some of what is being done today may not be the optimal approach, and there may be different ways of looking at what we're experiencing.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to talk to you about this. Let's begin with the idea about SARS-CoV-2, which causes COVID-19, and the other dangerous airborne respiratory viruses, such as, for example, influenza A. They continue to evolve, circulate, and alas, kill around the globe. And we also know mutations as well. Vaccinations and masking are not so prevalent as they once were. As viruses carry on and preventative measures wane, the importance of other environmental factors grows. And it seems that a lot of emphasis has been placed lately on the idea of increased indoor ventilation and air filtering, and perhaps also some use of UV light. But actually, it's not practical to have really large spaces bathed with UV light. So it's really primarily been indoor ventilation. And I'm worried because I want to tell you that indoor ventilation can actually make the problem worse, not better. And I'm going to explain, if I might. There is clear and growing peer-reviewed scientific evidence that maintaining indoor relative humidity in the range of 40 to 60% is critical to reducing viral respiratory infections, including COVID. Now, indoor relative humidity, what is all that? IRH. I'm talking about the capacity of air to hold water. And so 100% would be fully saturated, 0% is when there's no water at all. And I'm telling you that around 40 to 60%, we have lots of evidence that things work very well then. Unfortunately, this fact seems to be overlooked or just accepted as a not really thought about why it's so. Why is there seasonality to various diseases? Everybody says, oh, there's a flu season and that it's worse in the wintertime and better in the summertime. And the data really bears this out. It's also true of COVID, actually, and other respiratory diseases. But the question is, what's going on? Why? This has not been in the past very well understood. We know that the flu rates are about 100% higher in the wintertime than they are in the summertime. And we find that the indoor relative humidity is the biggest correlation to this effect. Well, what's happening in this matter? I want to show you because, people say, oh, look, wintertime, people get cold outside, they get stressed, and they go inside, and they think the way we should do it is we should freshen the air. That seems to be intuitive, therefore ventilation. But the truth is, in the wintertime, we heat the air in buildings to keep ourselves warm. And in heating the air, we dry it out. So I've seen data, for example, in apartment houses, and even for that matter, in nursing homes, in which the relative humidity drops around 20% or less in the wintertime compared to the right level in the summertime. Now people spend about 90% of their time indoors, both summertime and wintertime, and often increasingly in hermetically sealed types buildings. So this becomes important. That's what I'm talking about. What can be the cause of this? And I think I can give you an answer. We have found, my research group has found, that water droplets actually produce reactive oxygen species, such as the hydroxyl radical OH. And when OH is recombined in the water, HOOH, and that's called hydrogen peroxide, H2O2. And we all know that to be a disinfectant. Let me try to make it clear to everyone. There is, of course, been much confusion about how COVID spreads. Initially, we were all told to wash our hands. That still goes on. That comes back actually from early medical work on pregnancy and how to stop women who give childbirth from dying. And doctors learn to wash their hands. Oh, I'm all for washing your hands. But washing your hands is not what is the way COVID or influenza are transmitted. They're really transmitted in little water droplets. Some people say, oh, it's coughing and sneezing. No, that can be true too. It's just actually speaking, or worse yet, singing. That really brings out the water droplets. So we have viruses in the water droplets. What happens? If the relative humidity is very low, the water droplet evaporates relatively fast. And the virus is quite happy. It's desiccated, it's dried out, but it floats around lives for a very long time in the air. So people breathe it into their lungs and they get sick. If the water droplet stays in the water droplet for a longer period of time, then there's a chance, because this effect is happening at the surface of the water droplet, to kill the virus. We have done experiments showing that bacteria and viruses are both destroyed by these reactive oxygen species. So actually, it turns out to be very important, the difference between having like 20% relative humidity or having 40% or 60% relative humidity. And I'm advocating very much, as are other people in my lab, that we try to get the relative humidity right.
You mentioned that if it goes below 20%, that there's a problem in that the virus can last longer in the air. What happens when it goes above 60%?
I'm not so sure, but the data seem to suggest that again, the viruses, they're doing better. They're not bothered at all put into water. Okay, the 40 to 60% seems to be best. I think if they're much larger, the droplets basically get larger and they fall down, and there's no real problem with that either. So there seems to be a Goldilocks, not too small and not too large relative humidity region. But unfortunately, this relative humidity region is something that architects don't like who build buildings. They're worried about, oh, this water will condense the windows or doing various things like this. And of course, if the windows are double paned, that won't happen. But they don't want to spend the money to build the building. And instead, they really, there's a great push now to spend lots of dollars, truly, on ventilating buildings. And when you ventilate madly, you actually end up reducing the relative humidity. That is a loss. Let me give you an example of one of the worst situations you can get to. And I think a lot of people will relate to this. In an airplane, what happens? You get dehydrated. They're always passing out water to you. If you measure the relative humidity in an airplane, it's around 5%. Horrible. That means somebody who's sick, and as I say, they speak, whatever, those droplets go out and they go everywhere. It's absolutely the wrong conditions. The airlines brag about how often they ventilate the air. They change the air over. That's not what you need to do. You need to not only change the air over, you need to increase the relative humidity. And that's the point I'm trying to I'm advocating, I'm trying to make to people. And that's what this article was about, I believe, that it was published in Molecular Frontiers Journal. And it's really worth looking into. There's a chance, truly, that people, when they understand how poorly the air is being managed, are going to bring lawsuits against things like nursing homes for not doing the right thing. And so I really wish people would start to pay attention to this matter.
Why do you think that they are not paying attention? Why are they viewing this from a different perspective when there seems to be lots of evidence that supports what you're saying?
I think there's an entrenched ventilation industry, and there's not an entrenched humidifier industry. There's a device called the humidifier, which really can't easily get the humidity up, et cetera. And I don't think it's caught on yet to people to understand this and to make the connection that the seasonality is telling us something about how to control the spread of viral respiratory diseases.
So what in fact you're saying is that it doesn't necessarily have to be seasonal if you're able to control the humidity.
That's right. I'm saying we want to make it much more like nature makes it in the summertime. Now, there was a time where people were much more, using nature. People lived in tents. Okay, that's long ago. But there was some real getting back to nature that actually is good here. And we've gone away from it. We're actually distorting how we evolved by the way we're now setting up things. I'm worried about that.
Well, as you point out also in your article that, of course, we need viruses to live. So with a number of these ventilation systems and other things that they're putting inside spaces, you're in fact killing off all the viruses in a fairly unhealthy environment.
The idea has been, let's remove all viruses. And that actually is I don't think that's a good strategy. I think it's much more we want to control things. We want to inactivate viruses that can be harmful to us. And I think this actually explains partially why masking works. Now, masking unfortunately gets political and controversial, and people get tired of wearing masks. And, I too get tired of this as well, but they work. And some people says, it's because they're filtering. Well, there's other work, for example, done by Dr. Ad Bax at the National Institutes of Health that really point to it's a matter, again, that they're wet, that the relative humidity in the masks has gone up. And so it's not just simply a matter of protecting you from what might come in. It's also protecting others from what might go out. Masks do work. I think, again, there's great evidence of this. And you get not a full understanding. I wish more effort were made to develop this understanding.
You speak about when you're outside, there's less chance of transmission, and you indicate that nature tries to balance the air at about 40% humidity.
Often it's that way. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm wondering is, you are saying that, obviously we need viruses to live, but yet they're inactivated in the span between 40 and 60%. So if you look towards nature, could it be, and I don't know this at all, but I'm asking you, could it be that that's nature's way of balancing the very bad viruses, perhaps, and that there are some others that are allowed to?
Right. I'm not a virologist. Okay, I don't know fully answers here, but I do know beautiful studies that have been done that indicate this. I'm particularly partial to the studies done by Professor Lindsay Marr at Virginia Tech, which again show what I'm saying to you, that it's some lovely. It's a U-shaped curve as you plot it against relative humidity, but even with this knowledge, people haven't paid attention as to what then we might do, because I think they have not understood the physical and chemical basis of why this works this way. And
so from what you did in your lab, it's the first time that people have really put all the pieces together and come up with a possible explanation of why this could be true.
Correct.
And it sounds like, in part, that it shouldn't be just the scientists and health departments that we should be speaking to, but rather also architects and building groups and hospital groups who are
the people who put together various facilities need to think about this in terms of regulations. Right now, to my knowledge, there are no regulations on relative humidity in building code, but there are plenty of regulations about ventilation. Okay.
Mhm.
And so I think we're a bit, how do I say, not in balance, unbalanced in our approach. And I'm really trying to get us to get more balanced about this. And I'm not saying there's only one way. Okay, but I think more needs to be done this way. And I think it's worth considering very much.
Well, what you're proposing is something that is a natural solution, correct, to a very big problem. And viruses have been around as long as mankind has been around, and they've been plaguing us forever. And the idea would be to how best to prevent the next pandemic, viral
Correct.
pandemic.
That's right. How to stop. Not stop. I should be careful. How to reduce the spread. Okay. I'm not saying this will solve everything. But this will reduce the spread of various viral respiratory diseases, I believe. And I haven't even gone to the effects of what relative humidity does to your nose and your nasal passages. There's lots of evidence about it as well. We really want to get the relative humidity up. Okay.
Okay, well, it sounds like there's a lot of not only health benefits, but also preventative measures that will help us protect against these different airborne viruses, of which we're being plagued with many, not to mention that you can provide a better...
I don't think they're going away, you see. I think viruses like influenza are going to continue to be with us. Our hope is, in some sense, that we can make COVID in some way that we learn to live with it. I don't think we're going to eradicate it, as some people hope. I don't think that works. And I'm very interested in us controlling our environment in a better way than just ventilation.
You mentioned also in your article that there's been a sort of paradigm blindness, which may have impacted how people view this whole humidity equation. And maybe you can describe a little bit why you think that and where we've seen it before, because it serves to impede progress at times.
Well, I found this to be, in my own case, to be very true about being blind about something. When I was growing up, now look, this sounds like it's very much unrelated. It's a question of obesity. And my mother wanted me not to get fat, okay, as you'd expect from children. And my mother said, the way you don't get fat is you need to count the calories that you eat, and you need to exercise. So big belief in exercise and counting calories. Oh, okay. First of all, exercise is good for you. I'm all for exercise, but exercise is a very slow way to control weight. I know from having tried it. You just don't burn off that much by exercise. And you might think, okay, then calories. You just, watch your food. And we were very much told, but we didn't understand, or at that time, that it's not simply a matter of calories in, calories out, which sounds so intuitive, but actually how you control your metabolism. And that has to do with insulin secretions in your body. And there's a reason that a diet that's called the keto diet, which actually is loaded with calories, still allows people to lose weight. Okay. And this is the type of thing in which we can easily get ourselves stuck in what seems like an intuitive idea. Okay, let's get fresh air and we'll just ventilate, and not understand. But of course, not only do they ventilate, they have to heat for various things, and they take the water out. That's not good. Okay. That's what I'm leading to. That's why we have to be very careful about and how actually we do need a paradigm shift in this. I've seen so many newspaper articles and other popular articles that advocate what we should do is just increase ventilation.
Mm-hmm. Not to mention that ventilation systems are fairly expensive on their own, and they're very difficult to maintain. That's where you get
talk about a carbon footprint of a building again. I'm telling you, humidifiers will beat them.
Yeah, okay. I think so. Well, as you suggest, the stakes cannot be higher when we're looking towards potential to mitigate future viral pandemics. And it's especially worthwhile with this nature-based solution that you've come up with by restoring our naturally protective water balance. So, and this may end up being our most optimal investment against future pandemics.
It could well be.
And provides an option for primary health care that's inexpensive and easy to remedy. Maybe and also doesn't distort our environment chemically as we're doing currently with office buildings and hospitals and other places.
That's what I'm saying. I'm thinking about that. I haven't also talked to you about the effect of light. It turns out that light helps this process too. And once again, being in the dark does not. Airplanes are again terrible. Not only are they low relative humidity, but we're all in the dark generally. It's just the worst situation. So many people actually know this, that they get viral respiratory diseases by taking long airplane trips. I certainly have. I know it, my own experience, but I like to travel. Okay.
Yeah. Are you talking about natural light or just light in general?
I'm talking about natural light. And again, some of our lighting is not natural. The way we now do much of our lighting actually tends to remove infrared light. But that's another whole topic. About what we've done. There's much here to be looked at. And I think we really should be paying attention to the environment and trying in a way to get back to nature.
Well, I think what you're doing is suggesting a way that we can get back to nature. Now, it doesn't sound like the building industry in most cases is going to embrace this overnight, but people in their homes can start by adding humidifiers and keeping the humidity levels at within your Goldilocks span.
Not that expensive to do what I'm saying and to find a way to measure your relative humidity and to control it.
And so what are the next steps for your lab in terms of this these observations? What are you planning next?
Well, we're very interested still in the formation of reactive oxygen species of various sorts in not only water droplets themselves, but when water condenses on particles and various other things we want to learn about. There's much to be done here. We'd like to see some controlled experiments run on facilities. I want to really see if we take a nursing home and we change the relative humidity, if we don't really affect the outcomes much better. Very simply, this needs to be done.
Well, can you already compare data from, for example, nursing homes in more humid climates versus no?
I can't, not in the wintertime. No, and that's
okay.
Not and not generally if you run air conditioners too much either. That's another matter.
Okay, well, it sounds, I like your advice that we should go back to nature and follow nature's example, and that probably we'll be able to protect ourselves a lot better that way, not to mention not harm the environment further.
I think it's so. I know that some people will regard this, therefore, as being bizarre comments. but I think if you really look at the data, it points to it.
Well, it could be the most optimal investment in primary healthcare at a relatively low cost. So we appreciate your time today. And I want to thank you, as well as thank all those at World Scientific and Molecular Frontiers Journal for their support this evening. So thank you very much. And we look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thank you, Lorie. What a pleasure to talk with you. Bye-bye.